Today we'll be looking at Nigeria's 2025 budget. If you were observant last week on Wednesday, the 18th of December, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented the 47.9 trillion, according to a mistake he made then, but actually it is 49.7 trillion naira budget to the National Assembly in a cross session on Wednesday. And some of the highlights of the budget talks about the fact that the president is going to be making use of 34.8 trillion as our total revenue, and over 13 trillion on deficits, and that's, though when calculated, shows 3.89% of deficits, which is against the Fiscal Responsibility Act that actually says that 3%. But then he argued that we actually need it for a lot of things in this country. The pegged inflation in the year 2025 from 34.8 to 0.5% actually, which we have in 2024, to 15%, a very bold move. Many of those things are some of the things we'll be discussing today. We have an economist actually with us in the studio who happens to also be an educationist. He's doctorate in this aspect in the person of Dr. Felix Ijeh. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, and compliment of the season.
Compliment of the season to you, sir, as well. Looking at it, sir, we have in the budget actually. Many people talked about the budget. There have been speculations about it, which is supposed to be the most topical issue for this year. And we're just coming off a week where the Senate extended the 2024 budget till June next year, making it 6 months. And now the president also presented the budget 49.7 trillion, even though there was a bit of mistake there where he first said 47.9, but then later went back and corrected that 49.7 trillion. Deficit of 3.89%, that amounts to 13.5 trillion when it comes to deficit. And then he made a lot of bold moves. But what's your take on the budget from your own perspective? How do you see the budget of restoration actually?
I think what the budget is christened is what the president actually have in mind. He thought that he just want to use the budget to restore the economy. That means he knows that the economy is ailing in the first place. Then again, the size of the budget, when we say it's bogus, I don't think it's bogus compared to previous years. It's not bogus. If you check the impact of international interaction with Nigeria domestic economy, the dollar value of previous year's budgets is higher than that of current year. That means we actually under budgeted if we are talking of international comparisons. Then for the local market, the budget is actually very tall order, especially we are talking about revenue of about close to 35 trillion. And this 35 trillion, where are they going to get it? It's not everything that we produce. The estimated 2.0, we estimated 2.0 million barrels per day of crude oil, of which we've not, there was never a time we hit such targets. We can only achieve that where there is no conflict. Then again, he's looking at the interplay of the forces in the budget to drag down the hands of the inflationary pressure all the way from 34 to 15, which I see also as a very tall order. Then looking at the revenue side of it, we have to start thinking, how do we actually generate it? What are our sources? The sources are mainly from crude oil sales. What is the price tag for now? What are we expecting? Nigeria cannot control it. We depend on international communities. Then again, we don't have much crude oil to sell because we have already mortgaged a lot of them for swap. We are still going to use some within the local communities, so we may not be earning much of foreign exchange. We'll be dealing mainly local, especially the ones that will be refined from Port Harcourt refinery. I think those ones will be distributed locally. We don't have the intention of selling outside. Then a lot of bulk purchase we are going to get also from Dangote is going to also be local, supplying him local at our local currency if we're able to. I know that it's going to be a tall order to supply Dangote. So the economy is something that we can't just conclude. Let's just watch. We are heavily affected by international pressures because of our high level of imports. We import a lot, so we can't really say we are in charge of the economy. We only make projections. We hope that if the ministries, the parastatals, the different agencies are able to do their work as expected, and they kind of reinvigorate the small and medium scale enterprises. That is the only way we can say that we'll be able to achieve, especially with the target of the government and the expectation of the populace. The expectation of the populace is to feed. We're interested in food, shelter, and clothing. The feeding aspect of it is hinged heavily on agriculture.
Definitely.
That is projections for agriculture is not showing up much in the budget. And if it's not showing up much, that means plan for food and feeding is another issue, because that is the area that we employ a lot of people and at the same time feed a lot of people. Then the budget actually show what is happening in the economy. They heavily tilted towards security. 10% of our budget is earmarked for security. And mind you, security does not employ people. Security fights what has gone wrong in the system. So institutional forces affect security, international forces affect security. And those things that affect security also affect labor and productivity. So it's something that we have to watch out. And I think if the new tax regime is properly applied, then there is necessary institutional control, because we have institutional failures a lot in the system, and also a very good grip of the system by the local councils, local government authorities, and their investment activities. Those ones will determine whether this budget is achievable or not really achievable. While we discuss budget, we should not only center on the central government budget, that is federal government budget, we should also be talking of the states and the local government. Cumulatively, all the budget of the different states put together is heavier than that of the center. So we should not ignore it too. Then how are the governors going to handle their different economies? Because the small economies make up for the general economy.
So what do you believe should be the top priority areas in the 2025 budget, the main areas that should be focused on?
Thank God that you said belief, because budget is actually a projection. That is the belief of the ruling class. So, but I expect that with the pangs of hunger that we are suffering now, they are supposed to have serious attention should be paid to agriculture. Then what are those things in agriculture? Agricultural research, agricultural farm inputs, our practices, teaching towards scientific practice. If we are unable to adjust our land tenure system, then encouraging the local government to establish farmsteads and encourage farmers within to be engaged. This will reduce issues of conflict. This will also feed the people. This will encourage productivity within the system. So I think that is the missing link. Agriculture is a major missing link.
Agriculture is a major missing link. But because I wanted to go, because you raised a lot of points when you were addressing you talked about the place of the tall orders in the indices, especially that was earmarked in the old budgeting and all that. You talked about revenue. You talked about the projections for inflationary reductions and all that. Well, I'm looking at this thing. Now you addressed that agriculture should have been a major priority. Then you also commented on the place of security being very high. It does not employ people.
Okay, finish up.
I wanted to just go into a question actually, because I discovered that having had questions with multiple farmers during this period, one of the major areas they kept complaining about why they don't go back to farms, even though I felt it is exaggerated in my own personal view, is the place of the fact that they complain of security as a problem to agriculture, that if the security aspects can be well taken care of, farmers will go back to the farm. So I think that's one of the reasons why they prioritized more on security than ever. So I don't know.
Yeah, what I actually said is that I did not downplay the importance of security, and I didn't say that it's a misplaced priority for having it up to 10%. What I said is that we have these security challenges as a result of institutional failure. We have failed, then we are trying to correct. So we are using funds to correct our problems created. That is the problems created. Assuming the problems are not there, then the system will run smoothly. With fighting conflict, fighting insecurity, if you listen to news recently, you saw the statistics, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, about the conflicts and ransom paid. A lot. It's just too huge, too much. That means ransom took up to 5 trillion.
This year, though.
Yes, if ransom is taking up to 5 trillion, it's bigger than very many state government budgets. So insecurity, that means kidnap and ransom is bigger than the state. It's a very big institution that should be paid attention to. So if that one is reduced, then the agricultural sector and other sectors will flourish. Well, let me tell you that these conflicts, these kidnappings, these are a lot of issues. We have up to over 60% of our population, they are youth. And very many of them are unemployed. And every unemployed person and both the employed person, they have to feed. If you want to feed, you must look for a way to feed. If you check very many of these ransom we are paying, kidnappings all around that people are paying ransom, go to villages, they have internal connivance. People that are actually looking for what to eat, how to make quick money. Sometimes they kidnap and kill, and because of the fear that I don't want them to kill my relative, people start running around to pay salt. That means ransom, as a very huge amount like that, means that kidnapping and the insecurity is paying. Then how do you control what is paying? Do you want people to lose their businesses? The only way to control it is actually by going into farming. Feed the people. If you are on the average eating, you won't be thinking much about insecurity. You won't be thinking much about kidnapping. You won't be thinking much about attacking others. If you check very well, in most economies where they have very good income distribution levels, that is, where the disparity between the very rich and the very poor is not too much, what they control is petty insecurity, like shooting within the communities, and that is because they have guns in their hands. You don't see them breaking through the window to steal what is there, or you don't see them picking pockets all around. You don't see them, because kidnapping and killing start from when some of them kidnap and they identify the abductors. Once they identify, they kill, even if they take ransom. So that means within we have informants, and informants exist because of hunger. Not only hunger, but the way we look at wealth, what we see as wealth. Anybody may come in with any money. You won't ask the source. You approve. Even in the villages, they give chieftaincy titles. So those ones that don't have must look away
to get it, so that they can attain.
So, but if you are able to engage the youth properly, insecurity will reduce.
If we're able to engage the youth properly, insecurity will reduce. All right, so I really understand your perception on the place of security and all that, and I think it's a valid one though, and cool. But I feel it should not just be, because you talked about institutional failures and the fact that we need to engage the youth, we need to engage people. And I remember when we were talking about budget that we were only discussing about the federal government budget. We're not even looking at the state's budget. I was looking to a cross-section of the state's budget. Many of them to have securities as a concurrent list. Many of them even collect security votes from the federal government and all that. And I've discovered lately that many of these states still, in fact, a local council chairman was recently last week, while addressing the people in the presence of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, was talking about the fact that they can't even afford to buy a police vehicle in their, though the FCT minister tackled him. And I begin to feel that many people are saying that the security should just be a matter of just the federal government only. And what's your take on this? Because they have it in their budgets, but they are not really focusing on the energy to tackle the securities, except for the federal government. How do you see this as maybe because now the federal government's budget over the years, security is always at the topmost of the budget?
Security is every man's business, not even only for government, individuals too. We have to secure environment, secure yourself so that your life will be meaningful. So every local government, every state should have security. Just like you mentioned, they have their security votes. That is amount of money kept aside for any emergency. It may not be. They may not be able to tie certain projects relating to security to it, but they make it available so that once it happens, they will use it to tackle it. A lot of state government, because of that, they fall back to security votes. They use it for the largesse anytime they want to use their funds. So that is where there is issues. If we concentrate more on the local government areas and the SCDAs, it will reduce insecurity. It will improve our communities and our environment. The major problem we have this period is that a lot of investment is always within the city centers. If you talk of a state like Ondo, they concentrate on maintaining roads that are interstate between one state and the other, also maintaining the ones within the capital city. They don't pay much attention to opening up the villages. It's only when you open up the villages, that is when businesses and economic activities start flourishing more in the villages. Even those ones that are living in overpopulated cities will come back to the villages. They will see at least trickle down effects of such spending in the communities. This will generate food, it will generate economy. Eventually, the state will become better for it. A state like Lagos that has been overstretched by to the boundaries, to the extent that they are conurbating communities in other states. That means they are extending out of Lagos. And any community that is opened up, once it's cleared, within 3 years, go there, is booming with activities.
More like Ikhonede now in
Lagos.
Yes,
so states should be talking of not concentrating on the center, but looking outward. Look at the different clusters, look at the different communities, see the impact the state government can make. Don't only wait for local federal government. State government can make impact. They can open up road. When you open up road, you empower the people within that environment. Because even during the construction of the road, people around will have to cook food that they will eat. They will make sure they open up kiosks where they sell drinks and other things. Economy will start booming. Those money that are used for construction of the road, some of them will be deposited within the communities, and the communities will enjoy it. Then it will change their way of life. It will change their thinking. It will change their dressing. It will research has shown that a community where there is very good road, an active road, the reasoning and the thinking of the people, the behavior of the people change within the next 5 years. Before it used to be up to 10 years. Now it's within 5 years it will change. The value of all the activities will change. Then the research also had it that some people that has traveled out, that has emigrated, will migrate back. They have to return back in order to find a source within the environment. But when the environment is not paid attention to, everybody will be living continuously. They will overstretch the city facilities, then they will leave some little economic activity they are supposed to engage in, they will not engage in it. So it will become a case of having underutilized resources, agricultural resources, natural resources, etc. within the communities, all at the expense of mounting major pressure on the cities. So crime increasing at both ends. In the localities, crime will increase. In the cities, crime will increase.
Just because of the fact that there is no access between the hinterland and the city. Now, that brings me to infrastructure. 4.06 trillion for a year. You also said, maybe, do you think it's enough from the part of the federal government?
In the first place, it's small, because it's only investment in infrastructure that generates real investment for the people that we employ a lot of people. So when you talk of expenditure on recurrent is just for feeding, allowances, salaries, etc. That does not, in many cases, it does not really rejuvenate the system. It increases funding and cash in the hands of the people. Then the output is not increased. Definitely prices will go up. We have had series of analysis concerning that right from the period of Odoje awards. When money was pushed in, price went up. When price go up, that means the money that is pushed in is reduced from the system. the standard of living of the people will not improve. The standard of living will not improve, but the nominal income you have will improve. As at now, you see the cash we hold at hand now, the cash that passed through us is more than what do pass through us before, but our quality keep on reducing because of price changes. So when there is money being pushed into the economy, like wage review, conditional cash transfers to the elderly, then the youth, then payment of fees, like all these ones that we are arranging for, there are a lot of transfers and money being sent from the government, which is also included in next year's plan. Budget. When these things continue and we are unable to improve in our output, inflation will go beyond what we can control. It's already known that even our MPC, Monetary Policy Committee meetings and their regulations does not really have much impact on the system, because the gap between the projected and the real in the system is always very wide.
Very wide, yeah.
You project, like our president has projected, that will drag down inflation from 34 to 15. That means we are projecting, we're expecting 15. What will be the real that we have? When the gap between the projection and the real is very wide, it shows the magnitude of inefficiency of that particular policy. So monetary policy will always give us problem where the real sector is not properly addressed.
Last year we also had some kind of projection towards inflation as well, where we were talking about reducing it to just 20-something%, whereas this year it was a huge failure because of the fact that
I remember I was there. I remember I was there. We discussed it, and I was there. I projected. I said, this is what will likely happen if this will happen, if this will happen. All those things still came to pass. Not that we are not talking. We are talking, but there's always gap between when policy is enacted and when it start having impact on the system. And also institutional activities that help to regulate it. That's why I keep on mentioning institutional failure. Government effectiveness is very, very low. Very low. Institutional failure is very high. The rule of law, the use of a rule of law is very, very low in Nigeria. There is failure, high failure. When there is high failure, when there is high inefficiency in the judiciary, what will happen is that people will live the way they like. Crime will increase. A lot of things will go wrong. So inefficiency in judiciary, government ineffectiveness, etc. But let's look at. I still keep on looking at 2025. How is it going to be?
Because I wanted to ask, do you believe the inflation will even come down in your own perspective?
Like I've been explaining, if the real sector is not addressed, inflation can never come down. If you check the ratio of our import, if you talk of the goods, what we consume, the ratio of it that is imported, if you check, just go to your house, stand in one place, look at everything in your house, identify the ones that are produced in Nigeria, identify the one that is produced outside. If the ones produced outside is more than the one produced in Nigeria, you are not the owner of that economy. So, and once you are not the owner of the economy, you cannot control the price of what is brought from outside. You don't have the power to control the price. So when importers are important, even when exchange rate go high, those ones that want to import, they will collect more cash, more naira to exchange for small amount of the country's currency in order to bring in the goods. And as it's coming, then there will be a price tag on it to increase it. Then again, I think it was yesterday I was listening to the director of marketing in a Eco Hotel in Lagos when she was saying that cost of things has increased, that even some rooms that they were giving out overnight for 200 or around 300,000 per night is now 680,000 per night. Wow. And these rooms are always booked, fully booked. That means there is still heavy funding, heavy cash in the system, but the cash is not buying value. So inflation, how do you control it? Right. If you check what is in the Eco Hotel that is talking of, a lot of things there are imported. The wines are imported, even the chairs they use, everything is imported there. Then go to the streets. All the cars we use, they are imported. Even we import the ones that they've dumped, we import it here. Everything we use around, check around with your environment, the studio here, what is produced in Nigeria. So if you are talking of controlling inflation, can you control, you now as a producer, you as a consumer, can you control how much you will likely pay for a product? Can you estimate how much you will pay for a product? Can you say from next year, instead of sewing my clothes, okay, if I go to tailor, instead of the tailor charging me 5,000, if he charge more than 5,000, I will not sew dress again. Is it possible?
It's not,
because you can't control it. He will tell you, this is how I buy, this is how I will sell. So you are at his mercy. The only thing you can do is, okay, I may not be able to sew my dress again. Let me just manage the one I have. And these are the issues we have in Nigeria.
That means most likely the government doesn't have full control of its economy, and yet it's looking at controlling the economy. I was even looking at the place of the health sector, but where they said they increased from 1.36 was it last year. This year we're having 2.48 on the health sector. Do you think it's an increase? Because looking at
it's actually a marginal increase, because most of us now, statisticians and economists, when we are calculating, we calculate percentage change, it will look very bogus. But the health problem we are having has increased really because of hunger. When you are hungry, you have health issues. You won't be able to control a lot of things, and we need to fight to sustain our health so that we'll become productive. If we check out-of-pocket expenses for health, even if we have health insurance, how many of those are enrolled for health insurance? Only very few. Then there is need now to actually work on our health sector, the primary health sector especially. Our primary health sector is facing heavy neglect. They are not looking at it. I also keep on saying, you go to city centers, you see very gigantic building, general hospitals, then all the villages around, all of them, they don't have primary health care center. And these people are the ones that are working in the farm. If they fall sick, even malaria will kill them. Any of them that have little challenge, before they will leave the village there is no road even to come out to the city. So health is wet. Talking of health, I'm instituting, if I were to be in the shoes of the government, any budget for health should be targeted at the local government. It should be targeted at local government, the control of the local government, and if there is going to be any project within the local government, the federal government should hand it over to the local government and tell them to complete it and come around for commissioning. Let them commission it themselves. Though it's federal government project, the state government, that is the local government, should commission it themselves so that they will liaise with the local communities. It's in Nigeria here that you see a lot of projects that are started and they will never finish it. I'm from a village in Dumwesa in Delta State. If you get there is a very heavy, very gigantic post office project. This post office project ordinarily was supposed to serve the entire state, but it has been there for years, dilapidating. What we do now, children go there to play. The facility is quite big. A facility like that, if they come around, it can be converted to a useful one. It could be converted to a hospital or a clinic or something. If you check around, you see pockets of uncompleted projects. Some of them are no more even accounted for in their records. Although, unfortunately, some of them are already earmarked in the records as completed. So there is need to carry out audits of facilities, proper audit of facilities, federal government facilities, state government facilities, and local government facilities. They should have proper accounting of facilities and see the ones that are actually neglected, see the ones they can improve in order to improve the quality of life of the people. So health is not only about drugs. Health is also food. You can't talk of health without agriculture.
Very important, actually. time to continue our discussions on the budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for 2025. Now, so we've addressed the place of the inflationary projections, we've addressed the place of the security allotments, we've addressed the place of the infrastructural allotment and the health allotment. Let's go a bit into education, and then we from there focus on other aspects of the budget, especially the place of the deficits, the debt servicing, and all alike. Education has 3.5% this year. It's kind of an increase, and we know that so far so good in this particular administration. We've seen things like student loans come into play and all those kind of things. What's your take on the current fee attached to education? Do you think it can really affect the industry itself in the positive aspect?
Education is mainly to reorientate the people, to change their mind, to transfer from the crude to a well-refined or a better person in order to improve productivity. And the catchment area is the youth. So since the population of the youth is heavy, education is supposed to be very, very heavy. Heavier than any of them, because it's only now that you can reform or refine the people so that you have a better quality economy in years to come. But the one we have in education is small. There is a kind of a redirection of focus from heavy research in education, from the budget, from the heavy research in education to attention on students, which is also good because it is in the universities and secondary schools that you see majority of the youth, those ones that are in school. But we know that the percentage of those in school and those outside the formal school system, those in school is like about 28% of the total youth. So there are a lot of youths that are
on the outside the four walls
doing one thing or the other, informal activities, those ones that drop out, etc. But the ones for education, we look at what is the funding for education, then what is the expectation from education too. Then how is the government orientating the mind of producers and the people, because education is supposed to be the system is supposed to have a very good link between the school and the communities. So when you talk of education, you consider education within communities. To me, we should be a focus on secondary schools. Secondary school. Who is in charge of secondary school? Who pays secondary school salaries? Their teachers. Who monitor their infrastructure? Who monitor the output? It is the state government. So the federal government is actually very far from education. They are not very close to education. Their attention is not focused much on tomorrow. They are looking at today. Then again, you talk of the university system. If you go to very many universities, enter there, you see a lot of buildings littered around, decorated with TED fund. TED fund is Tertiary Education Trust Fund. This is a certain percentage of the income of companies that they allocate to developing research and education. So this fund is used for training for teachers and lecturers, used for building some projects within the school, used for encouraging research. But the new system now is that most of those funds, after about 2 years, may not even go to TED fund again. It will be concentrated more on funding loan to students. Then now let's look at the loans that they've actually given out. What we see is numbers, a lot of numbers, people that has benefited. I hope they've actually benefited. That means they use it to pay school fees for a lot of people. The intention is that this loan, the intention is that when they start working, they will pay. When will that work come? How do we generate employment that will absorb these ones when they come out, so that they will be able to pay back the loan that they take? So it's almost like if we don't monitor it, it's almost like a grant that is not to be repaid. In that case, you see some universities, some communities trying to mount pressure, make sure you apply, so that you get, even if you may not benefit, let's just use it. Some of them look for a way to handle it, use it to pay my school fees. Then the one I used for school fees before, let me feed. Actually, if you go to universities, you see that Nigerians are suffering. Very many students They don't eat, even sometimes some of them don't eat once in a day.
I understand that
So
part.
they are really suffering. Education is not actually getting enough. That means our future is not getting enough.
Looking bleak.
Education is the major intergenerational investment. A lot of other ones are not intergenerational.
They're just part-time.
Yes. Intergenerational means what you do now to benefit the future. So the people you groom, the quality of output you have will determine the quality of life that will be lived in the future. So education, attention should be paid to education. Education is not supposed to be for only government. Communities should invest in education. Every community where there is school, secondary school, university, any tertiary institution, the communities should pay attention on how to add value, because that school is also adding value back to them. It's only when they integrate that they will have much value. It's in Nigeria that you will be in a community. The research that is taking place in a university within that community is not affecting the community. They are not interested in researching about the improvement of the community, but they research about outside. But when the community integrate themselves very close to education, then they will have better value. Even talk of, for instance, you talk of within school environment, you see some banks around. There will be banks inside the school environment, but even the school authority does not have any business to do with the bank. The bank does not in any way support anything within the school. They are there for business. So, and those ones outside the community, those outside the community see those in school as people of different class. This does not add value to the system. So they should look at, people should look at that. University administrators, tertiary institution administrators should see how to shake hands with the community where they find themselves, because you can't do better than where you are. If you're able to do well where you are, it will add positive influence and value to people around. Then again, education too, we talk of research. The hallmark, the pivot on which education revolves is research and research outcomes. But very many of our research outcomes we do it for formalities. Some in the university system, they do it in order to get promotion. Some do it, a lot of research, they do it for outsiders. You see people get grants to carry out research from United Nations, from the US, from Asia, and they pay. We carry out research for them, then they get the result, they use the result, they apply it. But in Nigeria, we don't apply output of research.
We don't apply output of research.
So education is somehow, we have to look at it very well. The people have to get interested. State government should get interested. Local government should get interested. Federal government should get interested. And I appeal that federal government should not totally leave the state governments to control secondary, because secondary is the major building block of every citizen and every future of a community or a government. So if you leave government, if you leave secondary school level, primary school level is very elementary. That is where you start grooming them. And once you can groom them to secondary school, then you should start positioning them. The government should not come up with just educational policy, 6334 system, this without watching it to make sure that
it's effective.
It's actually effective. I think the system is not as effective. That is why private institutions, they will tell you they want to apply the Montessori style of education. They are borrowing from outside, applying within their enclave, and automatically they will train their children, those wards. They will train them, prepare them for schools that are outside the country,
and not even the schools that
are
not within the country, which is not going to be effective for our community.
Yeah, and very many undergraduates, they go to school. As they are in school, as they just enter, they start preparing themselves. Let me read a course that will enable me to work outside, not to work in Nigeria. So what's the essence of education if you are not preparing the mind of the people to better the laws?
So you feel the government should invest more locally on the place of the secondary education?
Yes, secondary. They should groom from secondary heavily. Make more impact. The universal basic education should be very universal.
So do you think there is transparency in the budget implementation?
Okay, that is when we talk of transparency in budget implementation, we're actually talking of post-mortem, looking at what happened in the past.
In the past, from like 2024 now, looking out.
You just mentioned that they extended the 2024 budget to middle. That means what they intend doing or what they are running, is not complete yet. So it's like there is a carryover. So for transparency, you still go back to institutional quality. Here we have ministries and parastatals. What is the work of the ministries and parastatals? They are the ones that generate the budget. They are the ones to apply the budget. Do they actually generate what they can apply? Because some institution budget because they want to put down figures, then go to House of Assembly to defend it. At the end, they wait for government to approve tickets for them. And they will check, they will know that this thing that we say we are going to do, we are unable to do it. Yet, they will keep quiet. Then some of them, they will just watch the budget. We budgeted this amount, we have not finished it. What are the things we should do so that we finish it? So they come up with any frivolous activities to make sure that they exhaust budget. So budget implementation is as good as transparency of the people within. Are we transparent? Who are those ones that make the budget? Who are those ones that apply it? What do they use the money for? Are we still not in the web of over-invoicing? Are we no more over-invoicing? Are we actually buying what we are supposed to buy? Are we actually using the budget religiously? How we are supposed to apply it? Are we actually applying it? Then the budget you have is estimate of income and expenditure. If you have a planned expenditure and the income is not released, the money is not released, the money gotten is not released, you can't actually execute. In Nigeria, we have a lot of already executed projects, in quotes, not paid for. So first of all, you pay back what you have expended in the past. Then the present, you apply for the present. There are some contingent liabilities, there are some expenditures that you can't wish away, you must do it. Like all those recurrent expenditure, that one you must do it. But you see sometimes some projects that is supposed to benefit the people, the funding, because the funding did not come, sometimes they will carry the funds, apply it on other things. They will say, they will send it to government for approval. The budget that was meant for this, let us transfer it to this. And it was for a purpose. So we should apply, that is why I talk of institutional quality, then the rule of law. Budget is a law. It should be followed. In the past, I don't think we are doing well. That is why we are having our government effectiveness ratio to be very low. Worldwide, if you check that of Nigeria is very low, institutional quality is poor, then our rule of law is not also looking good. That means we are not doing well according to the indices they are using to measure all other countries, including Nigeria. So for us to be more transparent, we have the Accountant General's office. They are too tied to the executive arm of the government. They are too tied to accounting part of it. They should take them totally away. If we are talking of independence of the judiciary, then we should also talk of the independence of the office of the Accountant General. Let them have proper audits. The audit process should span even from the center. Local government audits should be strengthened, state government audits should be strengthened, so that they will continue to monitor and continue to make sure that there is no failure. If private parastatals can survive very well and they deal with corruption, then public parastatals can also survive. If the same human beings that work in private parastatal are reorientated and refined to work in the public sector, they will still do the same thing. You see a lot of people, they will leave the public sector. If they are employed in the private sector, their work mind will change.
Because of the efficiency demands that the private
if
sector
you go to, I worked in the bank for up to 19 years. If you get to a banking sector, there is compliance unit, that is those ones that are liaising with the federal government, their demands and all those ones. Then they still have the audit. You have the audit central, you have even every unit has an auditor. The auditor is there, is very independent. Even if you have a manager in a unit, you have the auditor. You can't say you are the manager, you are managing the auditor. It's not possible. The auditor reports to MD. Why you report to change? So anything you do, he can report you to anywhere. So if the fear of the auditor is the beginning of wisdom and the reduction of corruption. So where you want to, you are the one that will pay the auditor, the accountant general. You are the one that pay the accountant general. You pay the auditor general. You are the one that determine whether he will ride the car or not. You are the one that determine whether he will go to some places to audit some firms and activities. You are the one that will determine whether he will audit the presidency or audit other sectors of the economy, other parastatals. Then there is an issue. Then again, our ministries and parastatals should be given targets. How on earth will people be working without target? Our president is very good at giving people target and monitoring. I hope and pray that what he did in Lagos monitoring projects, that he'll be able to do that. He may not go there himself, but he expects target. I think recently he did something when he noticed that some ministries they are not doing well. He fired some of them and replaced. That is how it's supposed to be. Nobody will remain forever like that. Ordinarily, even we the citizen, we're also supposed to fire the president if he's not doing well. So let him start firing others. So that they will sit up, and that will teach us more on how to handle other things. Charity begins at home. Local government councils should have functional audit system.
Functional audit system, but at the local, because I remember last week Edo State had a very big issue where the state assembly actually chased out some of the LG chairmen and all that due to some defaults in their duties and all those. And even though the Attorney General of the Federation still came out to speak against it. But now I think I wanted to ask you majorly that when you talk about institutional faults and all those kind of things, weak institutions and all that, but thank God you talked a bit about the place of the Auditor General. I was about to talk about the place of even the Central Bank and their rules and all those kind of people and all that, and across states. But then I want to just focus on something, because I discovered that our time is going down a bit. The place of debt servicing, the place of the deficit. Now, over the years, we've had consistent debt servicing in our budgetary systems in Nigeria. This year, we're having 15 trillion. Then the deficit again is going to 13 trillion. And they're talking about, collecting loans. Collecting loans alone, Nigerians don't even want to hear that anymore. That you are collecting loans for anything. Even though we still looked at the place of revenue generation, the president talked about the fact that our external reserves has gotten to $42 billion and all. We're talking about generating 34 trillion, which people are still asking clearly. How do we get this?
You have mentioned a lot of things. Let me just touch some of them. If you talk of, first of all, let me go to the issue of external borrowing or loan or deficit financing is of two parts. It could be external or internal.
Domestic.
Internal, that is domestic, we are having about 52, 53. Then that of external is about 47, 48. So that is external debt. But the pangs of suffering in external debt can never be compared to that of domestic. The reason is that if you borrow a small amount from outside and they determine how much quantity of money, your money that you can use in exchanging for theirs, that means you'll be in perpetual borrowing. For instance, if you are borrowed, if in 2023, in March 2023, you are borrowed $1 million as at March 2023, if you are borrowing $1 million when the exchange rate was 400 naira. Now that same 1 million exchange rate was 400 naira. Now exchange rate is 1,700, which is more than 4 times. That means your borrowing has increased to 4 million. 4 million plus about 5 million. It's still the same 1 million that you borrowed. Meaning that when you are paying, you have actually borrowed the real value then. Real value, if you convert the money, the source that you are going to use to pay back, you are going to work 4 times more in order to achieve it. So our borrowing is not only the one that they approved that will go outside to take. Our borrowing continues to increase because of exchange rates. And servicing those loans, loan servicing, loans repayment continue to increase. Imagine you thinking that you are going to collect tax of 1 billion from somewhere, 1 billion naira from somewhere that you are going to use to service debt. Now you want to pay back. You notice that it's no more 1 billion that you need 4 billion. But you cannot press the person that is bringing out the 1 billion to bring 4 billion. That means you don't have alternative. You are going to take extra 3. That means you are owing extra 3. You are going to mount pressure on the system. That is why our president is talking of a kind of readjusting our tax system so that we block loopholes in order to get a lot from the system. Well, when you are adjusting the tax system to get more, you are also going to get it from consumers. I'll give you an instance from that of Eco Hotel. They said when prices change, when cost of energy change, they move from about 300,000 per night to 680,000 per night. Who pays? Is the people. Consumer. And that means the consumer is being dragged. Every tax is heavy tax on the system. Every inflation is also heavy tax on the consumers. So we are taxed from both ends, from inflation and from increases. If you tax company will tax the consumers because they are going to increase their prices. If you tax heavy royalty, then the output they are going to get from there will be if the royalty is heavy, then the price of the output will also increase. So that is a major issue that you will have to consider. What you are to borrow, that means you are at the mercy of those ones you collect the money from. You can't say no. You must pay because the negotiation is in percentage, so you must pay their percent. And if you don't pay, there will be a problem. I'm having a little fear because of a lot we are taking from China. We should also be very, very careful so that we will not be totally dominated by that. China. Then again, we talk of what's the other one you mentioned? Debt servicing. We'll talk about
revenue generation.
For revenue generation, I've just mentioned it too. How do we get money that we are going to use? It's from Nigeria. It's Naira that we get, and we are going to pay dollar. That means we are going to exchange. Then again, you just made mention that the president said our reserve has increased.
42 billion.
I hope that reserve is going to be stable, because it's not going to be stable because we are most of the time we take such funds to defend the Naira. We take our reserve to defend the Naira. Even now, the reserve we have is also low, considering our population per capita per person reserve. If they say okay, that reserve divided by the population number of persons. Unfortunately, when we say Nigeria reserve increase, then a country like Ghana say Ghana's reserve increase. Say our own reserve is more than Ghana's reserve. Ghana's population is less than Lagos State population. Yes. So when you are comparing yourself, just like Nigeria comparing themselves with Ghana. So what we have as reserve is nothing to write home about. Why we have to look at that is that if there is crisis in Nigeria today, and we are unable to do much within the economy that we are to import, that money, how long is it going to sustain us for import? Because we import heavily. We may not last more than 1 month. So when there is crisis, we may not last more than 1 or 2 months. See, Ukraine, they are in war, but they are supplying us food. Because
despite winning war.
Yes, they are having war there, they are fighting. Then they pity us, Nigeria. They send some of their products because they have large silos, output, and all those ones. But Nigeria, do we have? We talk of foreign reserve. We don't have food reserve. We don't have a lot of things. So we should work on both ends. In Nigeria, we talk too much about monetary policy, short-term funding and all those. We don't consider much about long-term funding. Nigeria should be talking much about mortgage financing. Mortgage. How many are they giving houses? A major problem that youth face is housing.
Yeah, definitely.
Is housing. A major one that they face, graduates, is housing. Individuals housing. So we should face mortgage, face agriculture. Then thank God that our iron and steel industry is being revived, is doing better. And I hope they will sustain the tempo that they're having in the refineries. And let me to pray for Nigeria that tomorrow will be better.
Hopefully tomorrow will be better. Actually, I don't even see it as a prayer anymore. I see it as something that is very action-based. Thanks so much, Doctor, for being a part of this. Dr. Felix, Ijeh, for being here. I hope you learned a lot about the budget. I'm kind of positive, though. I don't know, but with your discourse now, I'm not so positive anymore. Maybe the government can achieve as much as possible and all that. We should be. We will maintain positivity to a very large extent. But then, thanks so much once again, sir, for being a part of this discussion. I hope you enjoyed the discourse. You learned a lot about the Nigerian budget. But then, it's time to say our goodbyes on Daybreak. We'll meet tomorrow, which is actually the Christmas Eve. My name is Ikhonede Joshua Yadeji.
I am Ogbe Esther. Bye.
Bye, guys.